Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome, thanks for joining me. Today's video I'm entitling, So You Want to Play a Blues Solo. So obviously this is going to be geared towards somebody who is new to blues soloing, or perhaps you've tried it a little bit, it hasn't worked out so well, you're not really sure why. Hopefully I can point you in the right direction. Now obviously I can't solve all of your blues soloing ills in one short video, but I can very much get you going on the right path and at the very least maybe point out to you some spots where you might be weak. Now the very first thing that you have to do is you have to make sure you're actually soloing over a blues. And that's really important because what a lot of people I'll see is they'll be playing over something like a G major chord, a C major chord, and a D major chord. And they'll say, well, that's a 1-4-5 in G, so that's a blues. Not exactly. All of those chords are major. Now, you can treat them all as a dominant 7 type chord, but a dominant 7 chord, a G7 or G7 for example, sounds very different and acts very different. Its function is very different if you want to use theory speak. It's very different than a G major. Even though there is a G major chord contained within a G7, it's when we go to the next dominant 7th chord that we really get more into the blues. Okay, so if you have G, C, and D, that's very different than G7, C7, and D7. Okay, so what you have to be aware of is, are the chords you are playing over, is this actually a set of blues changes? Now, some people will talk about, for example, a 12-bar blues as opposed to an 8-bar blues, or even something weird like a 16-bar blues, or it's got a long one, or it's got a quick change, blah, blah, blah. Sort of doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you have 3 dominant 7th chords, you have a blues. Whether it's 9 bars, 11 bars, 13 bars, it's probably going to be 12, but I'm just saying, even if it's weird, it's probably still going to be a blues. It might even have a couple of additional chords. For example, you might have something where it's like mostly G7, C7, and D7, but you see an A minor 7 in there real quick that goes to the D7. Okay, there are things like that that can happen in blues changes, and I don't want to get all lost in the weeds on all these options because there's a bunch of them, but at the end of the day, it's still a blues. If it's got fundamentally those 3 dominant 7th chords, you're in good shape. You'll be able to solo over it using a blues approach. Now, that doesn't mean you can't solo over it. You just can't use the blues approach. You'll have to use some other sort of approach, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands, okay? So, now that we know that we are playing over a blues, we have to actually choose how we want to approach it. Okay, this is what I call the 30,000-foot view. It's the one of what I call the 3 soloing legs. It's the approaches leg, okay? Because there's more than one way to play over a blues. The simplest and often most effective way, and I say most effective because I've transcribed thousands and thousands and thousands of bars of music from probably all of your favorite blues guitar players, and 95 to 98% of it is all the minor blues scale or the minor pentatonic scale. And there's really no difference between the two. They are what I call functionally equivalent. We have the minor pentatonic scale, okay, which has 5 notes, A, C, D, E, and G. And I know I'm playing it in a weird way that you may not be familiar with. I could play it all on one string, A, C, D, E, G. And we're gonna get into this part of this in a minute. A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, right? That's a minor pentatonic scale. In G, it's G, B flat, C, D, F. To add what is commonly called the blue note, G, B flat, C, I guess we'll call it C sharp, you could call it D flat, D, F, G. Okay, so whether I play without the blue note or with the blue note, okay, that's the difference between minor pentatonic and minor blues. Okay, so that's, again, another kind of theory thing. I know it's a subtle thing. It's like a language thing almost, but it is important to know. Here's what's also really important to know. It doesn't matter which one you use. And what you'll hear is that most guitar players will use the minor pentatonic scale most of the time and occasionally add in that blue note and turn it into a blues scale, if you want to call it a different scale. But they both work the same. If you can play a minor pentatonic scale, you can play a minor blues scale and vice versa. Okay, so that's step 2. So far, you know that you're playing over some blues changes. You know that the easiest approach, the thing that's going to take the least amount of thought, the least amount of trouble, the least amount of worry, the least amount of patterns, the least amount of everything is to use the minor blues scale. Also, as a side benefit, that's also going to sound the most blues. So that's kind of cool, okay? Step 3, you have to choose how you want to play that sound. This is the part where most people start. Okay, this is, and again, fundamentally a big problem. Most people are like, okay, I got to learn how to play the minor pentatonic scale. I'm going to learn this thing commonly called box 1. Okay, or if you followed me for any amount of time, you might know that I like to simplify that a great deal, and I like to just use 4 notes. And I call this the 4-note solo pattern. And the root note, the G in this case, I'm playing in the key of G, G7, C7, D7. So I put my third finger, on a G on the 2nd string, okay? I'll show you how to change keys in a second. I play 2 frets below that, which is what's called the flatted 7th of the scale. I play the note right above it on the 1st string, and the note 2 frets below that. So I have a G, an F, a G, a B flat, and a C. Now that's 4 out of the 5 notes. If I need the D, I bend my C up. Or if you want to stretch it out a little bit, you could reach down with your middle finger to, in this case, the 7th fret on the 3rd string and get that D. And I sometimes call this the house pattern, but the house pattern I also use in a different way more often. So it's also part of what some people know as box 2 of the minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so there's a lot of options here. I don't care how you choose to play it. You can choose to play it on 1 string if you want. You can still solo that way. Okay, you can play it like that. You can play it like that, like that. You can choose any box, any pattern, any whatever that you may have seen out there on the internet. It doesn't really matter. Again, I think the easiest one is this. That's a very easy way to get started, and there's a reason that I like to use that, particularly if you're just getting started. And I have another video, by the way, called the 4-note solo that's got like 2 million and something views. It's the place to go. So if you want to learn more about that pattern and how that works, go check that out. I'll see if maybe I can, I actually have an entire lesson built around it. You can sign up for it. It's free. I'll try and leave a link near this video in case you don't already have it. But aside from that, you got to choose how you're going to want to play the sound, at least to start, because you can actually move around between a bunch of different ways to play that scale if you want, and it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's number 3. So far, again, we know we have a blues, we know we're using the minor blues scale or the minor pentatonic scale, and we've chosen, in my case, I'm going to choose the 4-note solo pattern as the way to play that sound. Okay, now, step 4 is another thing that I don't see taught. And if you've followed me for any amount of time, you know exactly what I'm going to say, which is you have to start with the rhythm first, okay? I actually have an entire course on this. It's called Rhythm Figures for Blues Lead Guitar. And it is all about rhythms and getting a really, really good grasp on rhythms. This is something that most guitar players don't do, and it is why their playing suffers, to be blunt, okay? If you think about it, right, I've transcribed thousands and thousands and thousands of bars of music over my life. Albert King, Chuck Berry, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Johnny Winter, Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker. I can't even think of how many different players, right? And more often than not, they use the minor blues scale or the minor pentatonic scale. 5 notes. They're all using the same 5 notes. Okay, so if they're all using the same 5 notes, right? If Gary Moore and Eric Clapton and Lightning Hopkins are all using the same 5 notes, why is it that they sound so different? And that has to do with the rhythm, okay? The rhythms that they choose. Now, obviously Gary Moore rhythms are complicated. They're difficult. They have 16th notes and syncopation and all kinds of weird stuff, as opposed to, I'll say, maybe some simple B.B. King ideas that are actually very easy. You can hum them. They're very comfortable. They're very simple rhythmically, okay? That's where you want to start. You want to start with simple ideas, okay? You can actually create a very simple idea on your own, and there's a couple of little tricks I'll give you. One is don't start that idea on beat 1, okay? If you really want to get extra bonus cool points, you will end it on what we call an off beat, okay? If we're playing, you know, like a G blues shuffle, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Or if I'm strumming, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Right? Could be anything like that. The numbers are the downbeats. Notice my pick goes down. 1, 2. We call those the downbeats or the on the beats, as opposed to those, which are the off beats. So a simple idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple idea. I started on the root of my 4-note solo pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. I played 2 notes. That's my idea. Very, very simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. G and B flat. 1, 2, 4. Okay, now I can use that same rhythm, but I could use different notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I could maybe go up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so theoretically, I can use any notes I want with that simple rhythmic idea. Okay, now this is something that I haven't seen anywhere else. So if you're watching this for the first time, I'm going to encourage you to actually go back up a couple minutes and maybe watch all of this again. This is probably going to seem really awkward, but watch what happens. If I were to, I'm going to take my looper right here and I'm going to play a nice little slow blues in G, right? And you should be able to do this for yourself, but I'll just do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so there's a little bit of a groove. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So I can change it up. I'm just using those simple 4 notes. Now, you could go learn a lick from somewhere, right? You could learn 1, 2, something like that, okay? Like a little Albert King thing or a little Stevie Ray Vaughan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, like there's a lick. If you want to take something like that, that's fine. That's just a little bit more complex. I tend to like to start a little simpler. To take that same rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right? I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Again, same rhythm, different notes. This is how you start to build a little bit of vocabulary and you start to master the rhythmic part of soloing, which is by far the most important. So I'm going to go back to my simple example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to really, really get that. Okay, so this is step 5. Okay, what I did is we just created a very simple rhythmic idea, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we just created a very simple idea. And now what we're going to do is we've got to ingrain that. That's got to become part of our vocabulary. Okay, just like when, a little kid learns to talk, right? They learn how to say milk, for example. And when they say milk, they get milk. And they're like, okay, cool, that's how that works. I get it, right? That's kind of how we learn. You have to sort of put yourself back in that very early stages of learning to communicate. This is our language. This is how we communicate. It's really exciting to start to learn these ideas. But if you don't have any kind of framework for them. Okay, just like, you know, a little baby learning to talk. If the little baby says mama and he says that to daddy, right, it doesn't get the same response. It doesn't get the correct response, okay? So that's how he's gonna learn how this works. But it takes a lot of trial and error, and it's probably gonna take a lot of trial and error for you too. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this very simple lick. 1, 2, 3, and we're gonna turn the volume up so we can hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to this pile of jam tracks, and I'm gonna bring up like a slow blues in G. And for those of you that might want to ask, I'm using a jam track pack I have called 5x5 Blues Jam Tracks. Okay, and so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I can do a lot of different kinds of things. It doesn't have to be just those same 3 notes all the time. However, I will encourage you to use the same 3 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot at first and really get it. Except I did it in the wrong place. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, what we're doing is we're learning, we're listening. Okay, we're learning to listen to what that sounds like. Far too many of my students are too worried about playing it, they don't actually get to listen to what it sounds like. If you get this idea ingrained in your fingers, you don't have to think so hard about that. That allows you to listen to whether or not you like the sound of it against the chord that's going on right now. Okay, and that's another huge thing that is often overlooked. It's very easy to get all wrapped up in, you know, how do I play this? Am I counting it right? Am I doing all these things? You have to get past all that. You have to get to the point that it's easy. Somewhat jokingly, but not really, I tell my students, you need to be able to play this so well that you could do it while you're talking to your spouse about what you're gonna have for dinner tonight. Okay, it needs to be kind of on autopilot, and that is, again, often overlooked. So what I hope you'll do is do not just one key, but for example, let's try, you know, a slow blues feel in the key of C2. Let's see. So here's my C. So I can do the same pattern. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And so it gets to be easy. And you might start to mess it up. And that's when you know you got it. When you can then go back. And when you can talk while you do it. You get the idea, right? So now we've done it over a slow blues. What happens if we do it over like a shuffle blues? Let's do it over a shuffle feel in A, which is going to be faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And you get the idea. I'm not going to take a whole bunch of your time doing that, but you get the idea. It should be, you should be able to do it in different feels, at different tempos, different keys. None of that should matter. That's how you take this idea in and make it your own. Again, it's a simple idea. It didn't start on beat 1. As the bonus, we ended on one of the off beats, in this case, the of 3, right? So with that, you are soloing. Now, obviously it's not very complex yet, but when you get that first idea down and you really get it down, it's easy to go back to steps 4 and 5 and do some other ones. Step 3, which is, choosing how you want to play the sound, can also come into play. You might think, okay, I want to play something from the 4-note solo pattern, and I want to play something from box 1. And that's fine. That's also a great way to approach it. Okay, so to kind of recap, first things first, you got to make sure you're playing over a blues. 3 dominant 7th chords, 1, 4, and 5, dominant seventh chords, not major or minor. That's a different deal. Choose your approach. The most common, the most effective, the easiest is to play the minor blues or the minor pentatonic scale, which are functionally equivalent over all three chords. You don't have to change a thing. Step 3, you got to decide how you want to play that sound. I strongly suggest keeping that simple. The 4-note solo pattern, if you already know box 1 or you already know some other way to play it, great. As long as you're not spending any time or energy thinking about how to play the sound, that's fine. We don't have enough brain power to try and remember how to play a scale and come up with step 4, which is a rhythm, right? Remember to start with the rhythm first. Don't start on beat 1. End your idea on an offbeat. Keep the ideas simple. Number 5, create or learn a simple lick that adheres to the rules in part 4, I'll say. And learn it to the point that you just can't stand it. Like you have to absolutely know this. Like you hear it when you close your eyes to go to sleep at night. Like you have to learn it really, really, really well. And I promise that if you do those 5 things in that order, you will start to see how blues soloing works. And of course, as you progress, you learn new things, you learn new ideas, you learn new approaches, all those things. This is the basic. If you don't have this, it's going to be very hard to build on it with all those other things. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here. As I mentioned, I do have my 4-note solo. It's a free course that you can go through. You just sign up for it. I'll send it to you via email. I'll leave a link for that near this video. I have my How to Jam guidebook, which does also have some of this information in it. I'll leave that here. Of course, if you want to check out rhythm, either the original Blues Guitar Unleashed course is obviously a great way to get started with this. There's plenty of information about blues soloing in there. But there's also things like if you feel like you already have a lot, but maybe you understand that the rhythm is someplace you're struggling, you might want to check out Rhythm Figures for Blues Lead Guitar. I'll leave a link to the course catalog again near this video. Lots of cool things you can check out. Some are free, some are not. I encourage you to check out the All Access Pass. You can try it out for $1, see if you love it. It's been really fantastic. A lot of my students love it. We're now in our 6th year of that. So very exciting. In any event, check those things out. Share this video if you have guitar playing friends that you think would benefit from it. I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.